Right now, in the Red Sea, Iranian-backed Houthis are attacking commercial ships with missiles and drones. Every week, another attack, another tanker hit, another cargo vessel damaged. Global shipping is being rerouted around Africa, adding weeks and billions of dollars to supply chains. The U.S. Navy responds by shooting down drones, launching airstrikes on Houthi positions, playing defense. Carrier strike groups patrol the waters. Destroyers expend million-dollar missiles to shoot down $1,000 drones. And every time it happens, the same question echoes across social media, across news channels, across the halls of Congress. Why doesn't America just hit Iran directly? Why don't we make them pay? Why are we playing whack-a-mole with proxies instead of going to the source? Here's the thing most people don't know. We already did, once, and it was devastating. On April 18, 1988, the United States Navy destroyed half of Iran's operational fleet in a single day, sank their frigates, blew up their oil platforms, shot down their jets, sent their navy limping back to port with its tail between its legs. It was the largest American naval battle since World War II, and Iran has never ever forgotten it. This is Operation Praying Mantis, the day America showed the world what happens when you push the U.S. Navy too far, and the reason Iran has spent 35 years building missiles, drones, and proxy armies to make sure it never happens again. By 1988, the Iran-Iraq War had been raging for 8 years. 1 million people were dead. Neither side could win, and both sides were bleeding money. Iran's strategy was simple: attack oil tankers in the Persian Gulf, strangle Iraq's oil exports, pressure the Gulf states that were funding Saddam Hussein. The problem was, those tankers were carrying oil that the entire world needed. And when Iran started attacking neutral ships, Kuwaiti tankers, Saudi tankers, tankers from countries that had nothing to do with the war, the world started paying attention. In 1987, Kuwait asked the United States for help. They wanted American protection for their oil tankers. The Reagan administration agreed. Operation Earnest Will would re-flag Kuwaiti tankers as American vessels, protected by U.S. Navy warships. It was the largest naval convoy operation since World War II. Iran was furious, but there was nothing they could do directly. American warships were too powerful. American aircraft carriers lurked over the horizon. Any open attack on a U.S. Navy ship would be suicide. So Iran found another way. Mines? Iranian Revolutionary Guard boats began secretly laying mines throughout the Persian Gulf, in shipping lanes, near ports, anywhere American ships might sail. The mines were Soviet-made, cheap, effective, and nearly impossible to detect. On April 14, 1988, one of those mines found its target. The USS Samuel B. Roberts was a guided missile frigate, a small, fast warship designed to escort convoys and hunt submarines. She was named after a destroyer escort that had performed one of the most heroic actions in naval history, charging Japanese battleships during World War II to protect the ships she was escorting. The new Roberts was living up to her namesake. For months she had been escorting tankers through the dangerous waters of the Persian Gulf, always alert, always ready. On the morning of April 14th, Commander Paul Rinn was on the bridge when lookouts spotted something in the water ahead. Mines? They were everywhere. Black spheres bobbing just below the surface, their horns waiting to detonate on contact with a ship's hull. "I think we're in a minefield," Rinn announced to his crew. "I want you all to go to your general quarters stations, but get up above the main deck. I'm confident we can get out." He was wrong. At 4:34 p.m., an M08 naval mine exploded directly beneath the Roberts' hull. The M08 was a Soviet-designed contact mine, a floating sphere packed with 250 pounds of TNT covered in protruding horns. When a ship's hull touched one of those horns, a chemical reaction triggered the detonator. Simple, cheap, deadly. Iran had bought thousands of them. The blast was catastrophic. A column of water and fire erupted beneath the ship. The explosion tore a 15-foot hole in the ship's bottom. It broke her keel, the structural spine that holds a ship together. The force threw Commander Rhin into the air so hard he broke his foot when he landed. Sailors were knocked off their feet throughout the ship. Lights went out. Power failed. Fires broke out immediately. Fuel lines ruptured. Electrical systems shorted. Flooding began in multiple compartments. The ship started to list, then to sink. Metal groaned as the hull began to tear itself apart. In the chaos, the damage control alarm sounded, and the crew of the Samuel B. Roberts went to work. Have you ever been in a situation where everything went wrong at once? Comment below. By every measure, the Samuel B. Roberts should have sunk. Her keel was broken, normally a death sentence for any ship. Water was pouring in through a hole big enough to drive a car through. Fires were burning in multiple compartments. The damage was so severe that the ship's superstructure began to crack, the hull literally pulling itself apart from the stress. You could see the cracks widening in real time, but the crew of the Roberts had trained for this moment. Every sailor in the U.S. Navy drills damage control over and over until it becomes instinct. The Roberts crew was about to prove why. For 7 hours they fought to save their ship. Damage control teams shored up the cracking hull with cables, chains, and any metal they could find, literally holding the ship together with improvised bracing. They welded steel plates over gaps that were spreading as they watched. Firefighters battled blazes while standing in waist-deep water that was sloshing with fuel and hydraulic fluid. Engineers rerouted power through backup systems, restoring critical functions one by one. Medics treated the wounded in compartments filling with smoke. Sailors formed human chains to pass equipment to where it was needed, their hands raw from the cold Gulf water and scorching metal. Rear Admiral Anthony Less, the senior American commander in the Gulf, radioed Commander Rhin. "You have permission to abandon ship." Rhin's response became legend, "No higher honor." It was the ship's motto, a reference to the original Samuel B. Roberts, whose crew had chosen death over surrender. The new Roberts would not surrender either. The crew saved their ship. All 224 sailors survived, though 10 were seriously injured. But as the fires died and the flooding stopped, the crew noticed something else. More mines floating in the water nearby. And when they recovered one and examined its serial numbers, they found a match. The mine that nearly killed them came from the same batch the Navy had seized from an Iranian mine layer months earlier. Iran had tried to sink an American warship. Now America would respond. 4 days later, on April 18, 1988, the U.S. Navy launched Operation Praying Mantis, the largest American naval battle since World War II. The plan was precise and devastating. 3 surface action groups, 9 warships total, would strike simultaneously. 2 Iranian oil platforms that were being used as command centers for attacks on shipping would be destroyed. And if Iran's Navy came out to fight, the Americans would sink them. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral William Crowe, personally called Admiral Less with specific instructions. Sink the Sabalan. The Sabalan was an Iranian frigate, one of 2 modern warships Iran possessed. She had been responsible for multiple attacks on neutral shipping. She was Iran's most dangerous surface combatant. America was going to take her off the board. At first light on April 18th, the operation began. Surface Action Group Bravo approached the Sasan oil platform, a massive structure rising from the Gulf that Iran was using as a surveillance and command post. The cruiser USS Wainwright broadcast a warning in English and Farsi. "You have 5 minutes to evacuate." The Iranians scrambled. Tugs pulled away from the platform. Men crowded onto boats. The radio exploded with panicked voices, some pleading for more time, others screaming at naval headquarters. When the 5 minutes expired, the American ships opened fire. The cruiser USS Merrill and destroyer USS Linde McCormick pounded the platform with naval guns. Marine AH-1 Cobra helicopters swooped in, firing TOW missiles. The platform's gun emplacements were destroyed. Its communications antennae were shredded. Then Marines landed, reconnaissance teams who planted demolition charges throughout the structure. They withdrew, and the charges detonated. The Sasan platform erupted in flames. Miles away, Surface Action Group Charlie was conducting an identical attack on the Siri oil platform. Navy SEALs had been assigned to board and destroy it, but naval gunfire had already done the job. The platform was burning before the SEALs could even reach it. 2 Iranian command posts gone. But Iran wasn't finished. This is what happens when you challenge American sea power. Hit like if you support the Navy. As the American ships withdrew from the burning platforms, the Iranian Navy made a fatal decision. They came out to fight. The first to die was the Joshan, a small Iranian missile boat. She approached the American ships and was warned to stop. Instead, the Joshan fired a Harpoon anti-ship missile at the cruiser USS Wainwright. It was the first time in history that an enemy vessel had fired an anti-ship missile at a U.S. Navy warship. The Wainwright's electronic warfare systems responded instantly, deploying chaff, clouds of metallic strips that confused the missile's radar. The Harpoon flew harmlessly past. The American response was not so merciful. The Simpson and Bagley fired SM-1 Standard missiles, weapons designed to shoot down aircraft, repurposed for surface combat. The warheads slammed into the Joshan at supersonic speed, destroying her superstructure, shredding her crew, turning her into a burning wreck in seconds. American ships closed in and finished her off with naval gunfire, round after round, slamming into the dying vessel until she slipped beneath the waves. The Joshan sank in waters she had sailed for years, killing those she had once threatened. But the battle was just beginning. That afternoon, the Iranian frigate Sahand steamed out of the port of Bandar Abbas. She was one of Iran's 2 most powerful warships, British-built, armed with missiles and guns, crewed by men determined to avenge their country's humiliation. She never had a chance. Commander Arthur "Bud" Langston was flying an A-6 Intruder attack aircraft when he spotted the Sahand. He dove toward her to confirm the identification, flying so low and close that he could see sailors on her deck looking up at him. The Sahand's gunners opened fire. Anti-aircraft rounds streaked past Langston's aircraft. The ship launched surface-to-air missiles. Langston jinked and weaved, his aircraft shuddering as rounds passed close enough to hear. He survived. He climbed away, keyed his radio, and broadcast a warning in the clear, giving the Iranian crew time to abandon ship. They didn't take it. Maybe they thought they could win. Maybe they had orders to fight to the death. Maybe they simply refused to run. Whatever the reason, it sealed their fate. What followed was a massacre. 6 intruders from the aircraft carrier USS Enterprise dove on the Sahand, releasing laser-guided bombs and Harpoon missiles. The destroyer USS Joseph Strauss fired her own harpoons from miles away. The missiles struck almost simultaneously. The Sahand's ammunition magazines detonated. A massive fireball engulfed the ship. She burned throughout the afternoon, her hull glowing red with heat, before finally slipping beneath the surface. The largest warship sunk by the U.S. Navy since World War II, and Iran still wasn't finished. Hours later, the Sabalan, the frigate Admiral Crowe had specifically ordered destroyed, finally emerged from Bandar Abbas. Her captain knew what had happened to the Joshan and the Sahand. He sailed out anyway. 6 intruders from the Enterprise found her within minutes. A laser-guided bomb, a 500-pound weapon with pinpoint accuracy, struck her engine room. The explosion tore through the ship's mechanical heart. Fires broke out. Her engines died. She lay dead in the water, smoke pouring from her shattered hull, powerless and drifting. The pilots circled overhead, ready to finish her off. Another pass, another bomb, and the Sabalan would join the Sahand at the bottom of the Gulf. But then the order came from Washington: stand down. The Reagan administration had decided that enough was enough. Iran had been punished. Half their operational fleet was destroyed or crippled. The message had been sent. There was no need to escalate further. The Sabalan was towed back to Bandar Abbas, where she would spend months in repair. But she and Iran would never forget what had happened. In a single day, Operation Praying Mantis had achieved what no American operation had accomplished since World War II. 2 Iranian oil platforms destroyed. 1 Iranian frigate, the Sahand, sunk. One Iranian missile boat, the Joshan, sunk. One Iranian frigate, the Sabalan, crippled. Multiple armed boghammer speedboats, destroyed. 2 Iranian F-4 Phantom fighter jets, driven off by missile fire. American losses: 2 Marine pilots killed when their Cobra helicopter crashed during the operation. 1 helicopter lost. 0 ships damaged. 0 aircraft shot down. It was the largest surface naval engagement in American history since 1945. The first and only time U.S. Navy ships have exchanged anti-ship missiles with an enemy. A complete, total, and overwhelming victory. The strategic impact was immediate. Before Praying Mantis, Iran had been attacking neutral shipping with near impunity. After Praying Mantis, Iranian attacks dropped dramatically. The Iranian Navy retreated to port and stayed there. 2 months later, facing military disaster on land against Iraq and having just lost their navy at sea, Iran's leaders made a decision they had resisted for 8 years. They accepted a UN ceasefire. The Iran-Iraq War, one of the longest and bloodiest conflicts since World War II, was finally over. Naval historian Craig Simons later ranked Operation Praying Mantis among one of the 5 most significant sea battles in United States history. For one day, the doubts and humiliations of the previous decade, the hostage crisis, Desert One, the Beirut bombing, were wiped away. The U.S. Navy had proven that it could still project devastating power anywhere in the world. And Iran learned a lesson it has never forgotten. They learned that they cannot face the U.S. Navy directly. Not in open battle, not ship against ship. American technology, training, and firepower are simply too overwhelming. So they adapted. In the decades since Praying Mantis, Iran has pursued a strategy of asymmetric warfare, designed specifically to avoid triggering another direct confrontation with American naval power. Instead of building a fleet that could challenge America directly, they built something else entirely. Thousands of small, fast attack boats, armed with rockets and missiles, designed to swarm larger vessels in the confined waters of the Persian Gulf. If you can't beat one American destroyer, maybe you can overwhelm it with 50 speedboats attacking simultaneously. Anti-ship missiles that can be launched from trucks hidden on shore. Mobile, concealable, capable of striking ships in the Gulf without warning. Ballistic missiles that can strike American bases throughout the Middle East, including the 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain. Naval mines, thousands upon thousands of them, ready to close the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the world's oil passes every day. And above all, proxy forces. Hezbollah in Lebanon, with 150,000 rockets aimed at Israel. Militias in Iraq and Syria who have attacked American bases dozens of times. And the Houthis in Yemen who are attacking ships in the Red Sea right now as you watch this video. The Houthis who are launching missiles at commercial shipping. They're using Iranian missiles, Iranian drones, Iranian targeting intelligence, Iranian training. This is Iran's answer to April 18, 1988. They learned that America will strike back if pushed too far. But they also learned that there are ways to hurt American interests without triggering another Praying Mantis. Attack through proxies, maintain deniability, keep the conflict in the gray zone. It's a strategy that has frustrated American policymakers for 35 years. Every time you see a headline about Houthi attacks on shipping, remember April 18, 1988. Remember that America has done this before. We've faced Iranian aggression in the Persian Gulf. We've responded with overwhelming force. We've won. The question isn't whether America can defeat Iran in a naval war. Operation Praying Mantis answered that question decisively. The question is whether America is willing to do it again. The men who sailed into battle on April 18, 1988, didn't hesitate. When their ship was attacked, when their shipmates were injured, they struck back hard enough to break Iran's navy for a generation. The crew of the Samuel B. Roberts, who saved their ship through 7 hours of desperate damage control, embodied their motto, "No higher honor." The pilots who flew into anti-aircraft fire to sink the Sahand. The Marines who landed on burning oil platforms. The sailors who won the only missile duel in U.S. Navy history. They showed the world what American sea power means. 35 years later, the Persian Gulf is tense again. The Red Sea is a war zone. Iranian proxies are attacking ships that carry the world's oil, the world's goods, the world's economy. And somewhere in the Pentagon, in the Navy's war rooms, in the offices of admirals and planners, men and women are surely looking at the maps, looking at the options, weighing the risks and the costs, and remembering what happened the last time Iran pushed too far. The carriers are ready. The destroyers are armed. The pilots are trained. The missiles are loaded. Operation Praying Mantis showed what America can do when we decide to act. The only question is, will we decide to act again? One day. That's all it took. One day to destroy half of Iran's fleet. One day to remind the world why the United States Navy has dominated the seas for 8 decades. One day to show that American power is not just a theory. It's a reality that can be unleashed at any moment. The sailors of 1988 knew what was at stake. They didn't hesitate. They didn't flinch. They did their jobs, and they won. Operation Praying Mantis. The day America reminded the world why you don't challenge the U.S. Navy. These sailors showed what happens when you attack America. Share this video so their victory is never forgotten. Subscribe to Untold War Stories Official for more battles that shape the world we live in today.